It's understandable to wonder how politicians' extensive use of TikTok during campaign season squares with any proposed bans or national security arguments against the platform. At first glance, seeing elected officials or hopeful candidates harness TikTok for political reach might feel as though it undermines the notion that TikTok is too dangerous to allow. However, the situation is more nuanced than it might appear. Number 1. Security concerns versus political utility. Security and data privacy, the original and ongoing concerns about TikTok centers on data privacy and national security risks, specifically around ByteDance's ties to China and allegations that the Chinese government could theoretically demand access to user data. Political messaging. Despite these concerns, politicians from both major parties in the U.S. and elsewhere recognize the power of TikTok's massive reach, especially among younger demographics. As a result, some have chosen to use TikTok for campaign messages in order to connect with voters. The fact that candidates use TikTok doesn't necessarily negate the core security questions. It just highlights the tension. On one hand, officials worry about data security. On the other hand, they want to meet voters where they spend their time online. Number 2. Lady Justice is supposed to be blind. This phrase underscores the principle that justice should be impartial, not swayed by power or popularity. In theory, it shouldn't matter how many politicians use a platform if there are legitimate legal or constitutional grounds for banning it or restricting its use. The actual decision, if any government ban were fully pursued and legally tested, would hinge on evidence of wrongdoing or national security threats, such as data being accessed in ways that violate U.S. law or hamper user privacy. Constitutional questions around free speech, the scope of government regulation, and whether banning an app wholesale is justified. If the U.S. government or courts found a compelling security threat that outweighed free speech considerations, they might still attempt a ban or enforce strict regulations, regardless of how many politicians are active on the platform. Number 3, shifting legislative and judicial landscape. Montana ban. In 2023, the state of Montana passed a law banning TikTok on personal devices. This move was immediately met with legal challenges on First Amendment grounds, among others. Federal action and litigation. TikTok previously faced threats of a federal ban and was subject to ongoing negotiations with the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States. These have ebbed and flowed over the past few years, influenced by changing political priorities and lobbying. It's also possible that proposed bans may take a different shape. Rather than an outright prohibition, the government might push ByteDance to divest TikTok's U.S. operations or adopt stricter data localization policies. Number 4, are we reading too deeply? Political optics versus legal standards. Politicians using TikTok is more a matter of optics and campaign strategy rather than a legal or security endorsement of the platform. Evolving tech and policy. Technology policymaking typically moves slower than the platforms themselves evolve. New developments, privacy issues, and public sentiment can shift the debate. Public perception. Many voters, especially Gen Z, find it contradictory that a platform deemed too dangerous is nevertheless used by those in power to reach the electorate. However, public perception alone doesn't resolve underlying cybersecurity questions. Ultimately, the presence of politicians on TikTok doesn't automatically cancel out the national security argument. If substantial evidence emerges showing improper data use or significant security lapses, that would weigh more heavily in a court of law or government inquiry than the campaign videos. Bottom line, while it does seem paradoxical for elected officials and candidates to campaign on a platform that is simultaneously facing scrutiny, it doesn't by itself invalidate the original concerns. Political campaign usage is driven by practical realities reaching voters, while the legal and security arguments are rooted in data, governance, and potential foreign influence. In other words, you're not necessarily reading too deeply. There is indeed a tension at play. However, a politician's choice to use TikTok often comes down to maximizing outreach rather than making a statement on whether the platform is secure or not. Stay safe, stay secure, and realize that whether TikTok ultimately remains fully operational in the U.S. will depend on ongoing legal battles, policy decisions, and diplomatic relations that reach well beyond campaign season tactics. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye, and thanks for reading, watching, and listening.